Hello, people of New World. Happy Friday. It's me, Lemoni, and today I think it's super important that we talk about all the perk changes that are coming to New World. Now, in my last video, I just talked about Summer PTR, and a lot of you have probably been on there playing Guitar Hero, doing all the stuff and all the things. But we did talk a lot about perks and how those are going to change on armor versus weapons, but we have had a complete perk overhaul, like literally an overhaul. So many things have changed. Whether it's rolling, whether it's the actual perks themselves, almost every perk for every single weapon has had some kind of adjustment. So I figured, why not just have a little deep dive on all of these perk changes? And then what I'm going to go through is at the end, I'm going to have a little, I'll have a bookmark here, but it'll be best perks. And I'm going to go back through, I'm going to go through the stats, armors, all the weapons, and just say, hey, here are the big things, the big takeaways from it. So before we get started, hit the socials below. Follow my dog's TikTok. He's cute. Do that. I'll be streaming today. When you watch this video, I'll be live. We will be having a little bit of a schedule change. I will keep you all updated on Twitter and Discord with that. But without further ado, let's get into it. So just to kind of start this off, economy, progression, perks, all that stuff. They are changing the way that perks roll. And essentially what you need to get out of this is that, for example, like they're going to reduce the trade skill drop chance on earrings. So there's going to be things like Beast Ward, trade skills, stuff of that nature. They're going to make it so there's a lower chance to actually roll that, meaning you have a higher chance to get an actual solid roll. They're also rebalancing and normalizing perk chances in creatures and expeditions. Like, so for example, refreshing was not really dropping on most family and expedition tables. Now it can from everything. So there's that. And then just to preface this, skill perks have a different effect. You're going to see three numbers on here when I'm talking. The first one is the minimum, middle one is the top end on armor, and the last one will be the top end on a weapon, right? So if I put something on my armor versus something on my weapon, it's not going to have a different effect on the weapon. It's just going to be significantly higher. And a lot of these are absolutely insane. It's just insane. They're also making it easier to get higher gear score items. If you see here, all enemies now have a chance to drop items at a plus 100 gear score than normal. So, you know, there's some extra stuff there. And then again, they talk about scrap fragments, all that stuff that's coming from scrapping, refining, and just generally good changes. So with all that, you know, background foundation, what is going to actually start changing? Let's start with stats. And this isn't something I'm going to really come back to, but biggest things to take away. They don't tell us how much. It does say on the PTR. It's going to be a work in progress. But any of these split stat hybrid rolls, you can see all of these listed. They do not include con, but all of them will have an increase. And it's a significant enough increase where it's pretty much the same. So if you have any kind of dual scaling weapon, you will want one of these rolls. It's just more damage. It's going to be easy. It's going to be, you're still going to hit the points you're going to want to hit. And why not take, you know, the extra however many points? So for anybody that's using like a Hatchet, deck strength, you're going to want to get hybrid rolls. It's just, especially people like Muskets, people who VG main, you're going to want to go focus and splits. It's just, you get pretty much the same amount of stat as you used to, but now you just get extra damage because of the split stat. But the thing that I think is interesting as far as stats go is we're also getting changes to some of the early thresholds, the 50s and 2 of the 100s. So strength, the 50 and the 100 are changing. We're now going to have light and heavy attacks increased by 10%. I believe right now on live it's just light. And then at 100, you're going to get 5% more damage to slashing and strike. I forget which one that is on live. That might be like the heavy attack one. But regardless, nice change. That'll be an overall DPS increase. Dex is getting its first one changed. You're actually getting 5% more crit chance. That's pretty huge for you Dex people. Slight Dex buff, I would say. Focus now reduces skill recharge by 5%. So I'm assuming that's just going to be like a pseudo 5% refreshing. I'll take it. I don't know about all of you, but I will certainly take that. And then Int is changing. You're actually getting a 10% crit damage buff at your 50. And then at 100, you're getting 10% more damage to magic basic attacks, meaning I'm going to assume light and heavies, but I don't know about actual abilities. But that's all that's coming out of stats. Some good changes. I think the thresholds are interesting, and I'm really excited to see what they're doing with the hybrid rolls. Tools perk, durability, or durable, it's just going to do the same thing as what they're changing, reinforced, and it's going to be like indestructible, where it's just preventing any durability damage. As far as armor perks go, the big things from this one, you know, there's all the resistances, there's blight resistance, corruption resistance. They're changing these a bit, and they're making reinforced, they're turning it into an indestructible, where you now just, the item will never take any durability loss. So that's great. Big things to note, freedom buff it's now top end is going to be 10.6%, and then vigor 10.6 and invigorated. Biggest thing, I guess, is freedom. Technically, like on live, I think people want about 3-piece freedom at least to start seeing a difference. This might be, pretty solid at just 2-piece, right? We aren't able to hit like the number that 2-piece would give us, which would be about 21.2%. But I think just having 2-piece freedom slipped in there is pretty easy, and it might make a significant difference. So we'll see. We'll keep it. We'll test it out. So that's a big one. Refreshing ward, one less hit now. But the biggest one out of this section is the refreshing evasion nerf. It goes from 0.98% to 0.75. Is it that big of a change? It's pretty significant in terms of, it's pretty much a 25% nerf. But if you're still stacking, you have refreshing evasion on every single armor piece. You're going from 8% to about 6%, right? So it's a 2% difference. Yeah, that's pretty significant. Will RE still be worth it? Yes. In a lot of builds, RE will still be worth it. You can still, if you roll twice, that's still 12%. I think it's still valuable. I wouldn't say, you bought all your RE gear, it's a waste. 100%, it's still worth it. And then we just see changes on all the like logging luck, wards. You can roll the wards on shields now, and it's reducing the chance that the perk is actually generated, and then just reducing the chance that this perk is generated as well. So all the lucks and all the wards, just a lower chance of rolling, which might be for your PvEers, meaning that these actually will sell for more. So keep that in mind, start saving your gear, especially lost ward gear right now to prepare for the new dungeon. All right, so now we're at weapon perks, and basically here's what's going to happen. You're going to see pretty much everything either increasing in damage or increasing in duration or both. That's pretty much it for this section. So Keenly Jagged goes up from 7% to 10%. Keen Speed goes down to 20%, but instead of a 3-second duration where you don't get a lot of value, it now goes up to 10 seconds with a 10-second cooldown, meaning you can pretty much keep it up constantly. Siphoning Blow, reduce the cooldown from 10 seconds to 2 seconds, right? All of the chains are going up from 11% to 15%, so extra damage there. Mortal Lifesteal is now top ending at 7% with a 1-second cooldown, meaning if you're AoE farming like PvE mobs, you get a lot of value out of it. Mortal Lifesteal actually is pretty solid. Same with all the other mortal things. It's just top end is going to be increased significantly. Like Mortal Energy is up to 35% stamina. Siphoning is 11% mana. Mortal Refreshment is now 10% cooldown reduction. Mortal Fortification is up to 15%. And again, all of these durations are buff and all the cooldowns for them are 1 second. So just big changes in terms of the actual like efficiency, potency of it, and the timing. We do have some changes on like Hated and Kind just being like Hated basically did nothing. I mean, now you can get up 150% extra threat. So maybe you wouldn't even have to run a Carnelian if you had Hated on a weapon. You could run something else and maybe get more damage. I still don't think running Hated will be worth it. Same with Kind. Kind just reduces it by 45%, but a max of 99% from all sources if you are stacking it is what it looks like. For all the shirkings, here's what you're going to get a change. It's going from 5 seconds and 20% to 6 seconds and 40%, so a double of the damage and an extra second for it to be used. Flame Attunement and all the other attunements for those extra bursts, you're going to have the reduced cooldown and increased damage. It's going to go from 15% and it's 2 seconds to 18% in 1 second. So that's pretty nice as well. Thwarting, Trenchant, all those ones that were added in the same patch, they all have top end increases. So looking at Thwarting Counter, Thwarting Strikes, 15 to 20% max. And then Trenchant Crits is now going up to 30% top end with a 5% bottom. Trenchant Recovery, 41%. It's pretty crazy how much. But the one thing that's interesting to me is actual Rogue. They're reducing the chance that this perk will be generated. So it's kind of like all the other Banes. If you look through the Banes and Rogue and all these, reduce the chance. What does this mean? Anything that rolls Rogue will be more expensive. So hold anything that is Rogue rolled right now that you haven't sold, or if you have any, I believe there's mods for it. But if you have anything, keep it, hold it. It's interesting that they're changing that, and maybe that's just to kind of buff the Schizo build, but there's already guaranteed weapons out there with Rogue, so I don't know. Accuracy, also another one that's being reduced. Accuracy doesn't have a lot of value, in my opinion. As far as the different arcane types of damage wards and everything like that, they're going from a 2 to 5% absorption to a 4 to 10% absorption. And then Surefooting is just going to be reduced. All right, moving on to amulets. You're going to see kind of similarly all of the like protection things. So if you're somebody who has like strike or slash protection or something on your neck or any of these elements, it's going to go from a top end of 4.9% to now 10% damage reduction. That is very significant. So, if you are somebody that has thrust or slash, because those are pretty solid in the current meta to just have on a neck, I mean, that's a lot of extra damage reduction that you're getting out of that. Alacrity, bonus up to 30%. It's doubling. Empowered is doubling. Fortified is doubling. So all of those things that are like, you get X, Y, or Z when you crit or when you kill something, you're getting a 30% increase. Mana recovery is going to decrease the cooldown reduction. I still don't think this is going to be very worth it, but they're also reducing the chance that it's generated. Same with all of the lucks that are on here, logging, harvesting, mining, all reduced. And then they're reducing the cooldown of dot cleanse, and they're also reducing the cooldown of debilitate cleanse. So pretty nice. They're having it. I don't still think that has a lot of value. In terms of ring perks, what are we seeing? Decreased cooldown on siphoning down to 2 seconds, but they're also going to reduce the chance that it drops. And then all of the like poisonings, cripplings, enfeebles, infected, focused, all of those are going up. So poisoning to infected, those are going from 10 or 5 to 15 to now 10 to 30. So it's doubling. Focused is going to increase from 5 to 9.8 to now 25 to 50. So pretty big change. And then brilliant is going to top end at 20% extra mana, but they're also going to reduce the chance that it is dropped or crafted. And again, it's not one that's super crazy. Finishing out jewelry, again, evasion, like health toast and mana toast is interesting in my opinion, but as well as all the masteries, they're reducing the chance that they're going to be dropped from crafts or just normal drops. Health toast and mana toast, I know a lot of people that actually like these, so it's kind of interesting to see that, as a third perk, but, who knows? The only other things changing, the beloved one, the threat-related ones are going to change just like the hated and other one. It looks like despised is the exact same amount as far as threat generation, going up to 50 to 150, and beloved is the same, 15 to 45. So again, you can stack these on top of each other, get some extra threat or get some extra threat reduction. I still don't think they're super worth it. Now, here's where things are starting to get a little bit spicy. We're going to get into the skill perks for every single thing. A lot of the perks that you know and love are changing. So that means a lot of the random gear that you're going to get from chest runs that you maybe have or that you have the opportunity to snipe, there's a lot of opportunity there because we don't know what's going to happen with some of these. So let's start off with the Hatchet. Pretty much everything is changing here. If you look at it again, and when I say everything, pretty much everything for everything is going to change because we have top end differences. And remember, the minimums, the very lowest one, that's your general minimum. The middle number is going to be what it can max out on armor. And then the top end is what it maxes out if it's rolled onto a weapon. So Hatchet, starting off, empowered rending throw. If you hit them with a rending throw, ranged Hatchet attacks now deal 10, 21, or 31% more damage versus rending throw targets. Could be interesting. Rending throws on a super low cooldown. This does make potentially throwing builds for Hatchet more viable. This is something I'm really excited to test, so we'll have to see. Vorpal distancing throw is now refreshing distancing throw, and it reduces the cooldown by up either 30 or 49% on a weapon if you're within 6 meters of the target. And I'm assuming it's just the distancing throw cooldown. We'll have to see. And there's a lot of innate cooldown reduction that you can put in there that you can just probably keep spamming it so that it's viable in PvP. And then mending infecting throw now triggers when a target with infecting throw dies and then it heals you. Still don't think there's a lot of value there. Energizing Feral Rush is being changed to Crippling Feral Rush. A little bit scary, not gonna lie, with the current Schizo builds. You're now on top of getting hit by the Sword and Shield slow, which we'll have to see if they're changing Leaping Strike, but this is still going to be viable in terms of getting somebody locked down, and now you cause either a 20%, which I'm going to assume not a lot of people are going to roll it on their weapon, 20% or 30% slow when it hits. Refreshing Torrent is now middle 4.8 to 8.5% recharge, and then Keen, and that's per hit, and then Keen Berserk is increasing the critical chance while it's on a Hatchet, 14%, 27% top end. If we look at hammer stuff, Refreshing Mighty Gavel, it's now going to recharge if on a weapon or on a piece of armor, 9.8% per hit with a max of 3 hits or max of 3 targets per hit. And this hits 3 times, I do believe, so you can get up to 9 hits, and then 14% per hit if it's on a weapon. Repulsing Clear Out, just increasing the effectiveness, still big numbers there. Penetrating Wrecking Ball, increased effectiveness, and you can see those. Sundering Shockwave, increased effectiveness while on a hammer. Again, a lot of these are going to say while on a hammer, while on a hammer, while on a hammer. Basically, the big changes that we're seeing here are just these top end numbers. So empowered armor breaker, 50% while on a hammer. I don't think that's going to be super worth. There is potential with leeching path, but 47%, that's still a lot, but even the 29 that you can roll is a pretty solid number. But Sundering Shockwave having a 15% rend is also pretty crazy, but I don't think it's necessary just because you can Shockwave into Armor Breaker and then you're pretty much rended. As far as Musket has some big ones. So one, Refreshing Power Shot, they increased effectiveness while in a Musket and the cooldown was increased. Going from 3 to 20% to now 8.5, 54 top end on armor, and then 98% if on a musket. I don't think a lot of people are going to roll this on their musket because it's on kill. I do believe it's not on hit. Energizing stopping power, they renamed to repulsing stopping power, and they increased knockback distance. So it's basically repulsing clear out, accelerated traps, it's increased effectiveness in general, and then while on a musket, its duration is also increased another 2 seconds. Mending sticky bombs, more healing. But the big ones I want to highlight are empowering shooter stance and crippling powder burn. If you roll these on a musket, you will be frying people on top of other things that are now going to stack and be more effective and do more damage. So, empowering shooter stance, increased effectiveness. If you put it on a weapon, you get up to 41% in power. That's nuts. And then you have, the mortal empower thing on the ring, where per kill you're getting a stacking 2% up to 15 stacks. So if you're an OPR just sitting in shooter stance, you pop in with a max 15 stack, 30% extra damage on top of your 41% on top of all of now your hybrid gear. You will be frying people. And then the other one is crippling powder burn. You're going to put almost a 42% slow on people if you have it on your musket. So pretty nuts there. Things with bow. One thing I'd like to highlight, bow has gotten a new ability. It's called Explosive Arrow. And the modifier for that is it increases damage on a bow. It's going to be until your next ability. So once you use an ability, you're good. Or if you do an attack. But energizing evade shot, increased effectiveness, and it reduces the cooldown now. On armor, it's 19% damage, 14% cooldown. Weapon, 34% damage, 25% cooldown. Fortifying rain of arrows has now been changed to lasting rain of arrows. It now causes a slow and bleed. So that's pretty nice. I think that's kind of crazy. And the bleed is going to last about either 20 to 30% longer. As far as poisoning shot, weakness is now increased when it's on a bow, up to 25% weakness with a 6-second duration. And if you combo this with skewer on a spear, you will basically just weaken the crap out of people. So there's that. We'll talk about that in a second. Explosive arrow we talked about. Penetrating rapid fire now affects all rapid fire attacks, not just the first one. And the armor pen is increased. So that's pretty crazy. If you roll it, it's up to a 33% armor pen for those big chunky boys. And then refreshing pen shot. If you put it on a bow, up to 25% cooldown reduction. I don't know how many people are going to be putting that one on as opposed to other things. Rapier. Energizing Flourish is now Deadly Flourish, which deals 10, 25, or 39% more damage versus targets below 50%. So it's like an execute, and that is a lot of extra damage. Omnidirectional Evade, up to 19% bonus at damage after using Evade. You use Evade a lot on a Rapier, that's kind of nuts. Keen Tondo increased the critical chance of up to 21%. Sundering Riposte on a weapon, so for you healers, you're going to have a chance to put a 24% rend on people. That is absurd. That's actually absurd. Leeching Flurry, if you put it on a weapon, 47%. Refreshing Flesh, 33% cooldown. I will say this is kind of hard to proc just a lot in PvP because the hitbox for it's really weird. If you try to use it on somebody who's running away, it doesn't necessarily hit. And it's just kind of an awkward ability sometimes. Next one, Life Staff, Refreshing Divine Embrace. It now works, but you also get a bonus recharge up to 69% on a weapon. I don't think it's necessary on a weapon. I think it's best just on a piece of gear with 41% with some of the other changes. And then you also get mana back now. So that's kind of nice. Energizing Splash of Light is an interesting one. And I was talking to Baggins while he was testing this. But so it's Purity of Light, and it now heals for an additional percentage of your weapon damage if you roll on. So if it's on your weapon, you get an 85% of your weapon damage if Splash removes a debuff. Now the thing is, it doesn't scale with focus. Whereas, baseline Splash of Light is, 60%-ish of weapon damage, but it's going to hit for 1.92k, whatever it is, right? But that's because, or higher, you know what I mean? It scales with focus. So the actual other thing only scales with your base weapon damage, and then all of your normal healing modifiers, other than what seems like Sacred Ground and potentially Mending Protection, it doesn't. So it's like an extra little bit on top of it. I don't know how worth it's going to be, but we'll have to see. And if they do make it scale off of focus, this will be absolutely broken. But for now, keep this one in mind. Accelerating Light's Embrace, they're going to make it so it scales a bit higher, and they're going to increase the duration when on a weapon. And then Revitalizing Beacon is gone, and it's now Vicious Beacon. And so when Beacon heals a player, they get crit chance. There's going to be at least a 6.1% crit chance when you have it on gear. Honestly, I don't know how worth this is going to be on gear. It'll be nice to give other players crit chance, but I don't know if that's going to be better than, a lot of people have a ton of crit as is, but I don't know if that's going to be better than, more resil or more refreshing or whatever you want. But it's definitely worth throwing in there. In terms of individual survival, we do lose that, so it's a little upsetting, but I think it's great in terms of team play. Fortifying Sacred Ground. This is one of the ones you would want to consider putting on your life staff. You're going to get a 16% Fortify instead now, but I think the one that is probably most worth on a life staff is Mending Protection. So instead of getting a 24% healing effectiveness increase, you're almost doubling it, and you're getting a 42%. So BIS life staff would look like Blessed, Refreshing Move, Mending Protection. Next ones, and I'm sorry, I want to be all-encompassing. I want to talk about all of these for all of you who are not caught up to speed. Fire Staff Empowering Meteor now grants a stacking damage buff. It was just on initial hit, and this stacks up to 10 times. If it's on a piece of gear, I don't think this is one you should throw on your staff personally, but you could if you're going to go Thwarting Strikes, Flamethrower, or Meteor build. This will top off at 2.9% per hit, and on armor it'll be 2% per hit. But a little bit of a meteor buff. It could be interesting. I don't know how worth, but we'll have to see. Siphoning Incinerate has been renamed to Stable Incinerate, and it now adds Grit to Incinerate and causes it to deal more damage. Really nice. Adds in some flavor to the Fire Staff. You could probably see some more assassins starting to run it. Accelerating Flamethrower, you just get higher top end burn duration from the Flamethrower. And then Efficient Burnout, it now grants a damage increase as well as the mana back, and this is going to end on your first hit. So it's going to deal more damage, and then it looks like it's going to grant like an Empower is the way I'm reading this. It's not worded very well, but it's granting 33% more damage to your next hit is what I'm getting from that. Refreshing Pillar of Fire, increased top end 25% cooldown while on a Fire Staff, and then Empowering Fireball, this is probably the one that everybody's going to want on here. Instead of the 32% you're getting, it is now almost 60% on a Fire Staff. Sword and Shield, Whirling Blade damage increased up to 50% top end. Repulsing Shield Bash is now like Diminishing Orb, so it's going to reduce buff durations. Kind of interesting there. Fortifying Shield Rush, increased duration, but also increased top end when on a shield, but it's up to 33%. It's a lot. It's a little tough to hit Shield Rush sometimes, but I think it's still pretty good. Accelerated Defiant Stance is now increasing in duration. The move speed is being reduced, but you're also going to get increased healing. So if you have it on a shield, you get 13% increased healing, 33% movement, and then you will get a 6-second buff. Contagious Stab now increases reverse stab damage. This is going to make the Sword and Shield Schizos a little bit scarier, so keep that in mind. And then Empowering Leaping Strike now only increases sword damage and increases damage on a sword by up to 31%. So, what are you going to see here? You're probably going to see people with Empowered Leaping Strike, and they're going to either get the 31% damage or the 17, and then they're going to either run, probably reverse stab, and you're going to get stagger, stunned, into a 15% stronger reverse stab with something on them as you, after you hit them with an Ice Gauntlet shower. Sword and Shield may not necessarily give you the slow like it did on the old Leaping Strike still gives you the slow, but this is even stronger. This is just kind of crazy to me that we're seeing like schizo buffs. Little scary, so keep those in mind. Great Axe, if Unpredictable Strike hits, it recharges faster, so that's the last point in charge. Mending Execute, more life-stealing Crippling Reap, increase slow, and also increases the duration up to a 50% slow with a 4% duration. Fortifying Whirlwind now gives damage and damage absorption, so you're going to get up to a 50% stronger Whirlwind. Kind of weird, kind of interesting. I'm excited. Maelstrom, increased damage reduction and increases weakened durations. And then Insatiable Gravity Well, damage bonuses just increase on a Great Axe up to 52%. That's a lot. If you're a GA user, you're probably going to want that on there. That's spicy. Unbroken Winds on IG now has grit and increases damage up to 40%. You could see some, some wind chill builds. We'll have to see. I'm excited for that one. Unending Thaw changed. It now does 10% more damage on your Ice Storm if you have it on. That could be great if you are a user of something like Crystalline Curse, Refreshing Move, Enchanted, and then 10% more Ice Storm damage and just pumping out Ice Storms. I think that's going to be insane. Pylon Burst increases pylon damage. It's not going to burst anymore. It's going to just completely be a damage increase. Pretty nuts. We're going to see Healing Tomb increase. Deadly Frost is going to now recharge Ice Shower instead of putting a dot on. That's a nice change. And then up to a 100% Ice Refresh. Recharge or cooldown change when on an IG. Spear has some good ones. Basically, Bleeding Sweep, increased duration, but it's also going to be about 17% weapon damage if on a weapon. Enfeebling Skewer, this is what I was talking about with bow. You could hit them with a poison shot that lasts 20 some seconds, and then hit them with the skewer, and then you are going to have a target that's almost doing like over 80% less damage. That's nuts to me. Keen Vault Kick increased up to 36% crit chance. I don't know if you need that on a spear, but that is still a lot of crit, and it's pretty crazy. Fortify is increased Sundering. The Rend is up to 25% while on a spear. Kind of a schizo thing maybe. And then Leeching Cyclone is going to have increased life stealing while on a spear. Void Gauntlet, Empowering Rupture. I still don't think this is worth because the target has to die, so I'm just not even going to talk about it. Nullifying Oblivion now recharges Oblivion faster. So we're getting rid of old Nullifying Oblivion, and it's just going to keep recharging Oblivion faster. I'm assuming that just means there's a 14% higher cooldown, so it's going to be 10% off on your gear. I don't know if Nully Oblivion is really going to be worth anymore to put on your gear, just because now it's like a damage buff. It does give stand back, but the big thing was to take off buffs. Putrefying Scream, up to a 40% healing effectiveness change, and it lasts 10 seconds. Voracious Blade, up to 51% healing effectiveness. The Slow on Tether, 40% nobody uses Tether. And then Diminishing Orb increases, or it's not going to increase buff duration, it's going to reduce buff duration. Oh, increase buff reduction by 70% if on a weapon. That's insane as well. Resupplying Mortar Charge, not really one that's used, but 14% per kill. Crippling Blast is going to 33% slow if you hit him with it. Plague Splitting Grenade, 24% healing reduction. Exhaustive Net, 57% stamina reduction. That's nuts. Venturing Claw Shot, 33% power, and Leeching Shrapnel Blast is 24% lifesteal. So you can see with all these, there are some big changes. Now let's just go back through really quick, and I'm going to TLDR what are the biggest ones from all of these. I'm going to skip over like all of these like weird ones, but I guess armor perks, just know Ari's getting nerfed. That's the biggest one. You're going to have a lot of changes in terms of rolling. Weapon perks, pretty much everything's getting buffed. Amulet perks, nothing super crazy, but everything's getting buffed, or it's like the old ones are getting reduced chance to drop. Same with rings, it's just general buffs. Nothing changing with like any of our general ones like Keen Awareness, Hardy, Sacred. And then same things with the earring. Now, skill perks individually. What's the biggest thing coming out of Hatchet? I would say one, Energizing Feral Rush being changed to Crippling Feral Rush is going to buff schizos. So this is going to be an even more drastic slow coming from the schizos. Be aware of that. And then also a buff to throwing builds. Curious to see what builds we can come out with that. Hammer, pretty much everything. I think the biggest one is the Sundering Shockwave increase. I mean, getting more Rend or even getting more on Wrecking Ball. Just another good one, something else that you use, or Leeching Path. So pretty much all of the general ones that get used on this are getting a buff. Musket. Empowering Shooter Stance is probably the biggest one. You're getting almost a 41% empower when you're in your shooter stance, and then a 42% slow if you put it on your weapon. So you'd have to choose between one of those two. Bow, I think the biggest one is probably the Armor Pen coming out of Penetrating Rapid Fire. 33% Armor Pen is pretty absurd, but boy, like Explosive Arrow, you could have some crazy cooldowns with a pen shot. So keep that in mind. Rapier, I think Omnidirectional Evade having a 19% bonus damage, or Sundering Riposte now doing a 24% rend is big for the healers. Life Staff, biggest thing, Mending Protection, in my opinion. Having a 42% mending protection is just nuts, but I think the sleeper one is Energizing Splash of Light being changed to Purity of Light, and potentially having some Splash of Light builds in there. Fire Staff, what do I like out of here? Powering Fireball. 58% on your Fire Staff is just nuts, and be ready for the sleeper Meteor Shower builds that I'm going to do. Just be ready for it. Sword and Shield, I would say Contagious Stab and Empowering Leaping Strike changing to now Leaping Strike doing just more general damage, but as well as Contagious Stab now just increasing reverse stab damage in addition to up to 15%. Schizo build buff. Great Axe, I would probably say Insatiable Gravwell or Crippling Reap right now is one that people are using a lot. 51% if you put it on your Great Axe, but in general, the duration increasing. But Insatiable Grav could be doing a lot more damage. That's a pretty good one. Still, I don't know though. It might be better to have your Thwarting Strikes, Refreshing Move with Chain or Attunement or whatever, Shirking. IG, Pylon is big actually. This is just a straight Pylon buff. In general, it's going to just increase pylon damage. It's not going to burst anymore. It is just a flat pylon damage increase. The other big ones, I would probably say are Unending Thaw Change. This is going to be really good for the refreshing move farming like Ice Storm builds, and then Sleeper, Unbroken Winds. Spear, all of the bleeds. The bleeds are increasing, but Enfeebling Skewer doing up to 44% weakness is pretty absurd as well. Keen Vault Kick, huge. A lot of these are really solid, and the Rend here for a Schizo Sword and Shield Spear build, I don't know, that's pretty crazy. Void Gauntlet, Voracious Blade, 51% healing if you have it on your Void Gauntlet. You can combo this with just in a Leech build and you're going to pop off and never die. And then on Blunderbuss, just in general, everything's being increased. I'd probably say the biggest one is Plague Splitting Grenade or Crippling Blast. Those are my opinions. There's a lot more changing in the PTR. This is just the start of it, but we're having a complete perk overhaul. Sorry the video was long, but we had to talk about everything. There's some really incredible things happening here. I'm excited, and I hope all of you are too. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you're excited for. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you're feeling, but I am ready for this. I hope I gave you some clarity, and I hope a lot of you are getting ready for some builds, getting ready to snipe gear, and just generally excited for what's coming in July. As always, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and thank you for every single one of you for being you.